Every year, millions of Americans believe they understand the law. They follow rules, pay fines, and trust the system. Yet, lurking in plain sight, there are cracks few ever notice. Loopholes in U.S. law create gaps where rules can be bypassed, not illegally, but through technicalities. These gaps often allow individuals and organizations to act in ways the public assumes are impossible. How is it possible that something deemed unlawful can still happen under the law? Most people don't see these subtle gaps because they are buried in the complexities of federal and state regulations. Legal language is precise, often ambiguous, and full of exceptions. This is where loopholes thrive. Some are the result of historical drafting errors. Others emerge when new technologies outpace the legislation designed to govern them. A corporation may pay millions less in taxes by exploiting a clause written decades earlier. An individual may avoid certain penalties simply because the law doesn't account for a new financial maneuver. The system quietly works like this. It rewards those who understand its intricacies and punishes only those who don't. What happens next is rarely discussed in mainstream media. Few Americans realize that understanding these details could alter how they interact with their own finances, business dealings, or even personal legal obligations. This documentary will uncover some of the most striking U.S. law loopholes, explain why they exist, and explore their impact on everyday life. By the end, you may see the law not as a shield, but as a maze. One of the most astonishing areas where loopholes thrive is in tax law. Federal and state tax codes are notoriously dense, stretching thousands of pages. Within these codes are specific clauses that allow certain deductions, credits, or exemptions. Most people never notice this detail. The IRS provides legal pathways for minimizing tax liability in ways ordinary citizens might not even imagine. Charitable contributions, real estate investments, and even certain retirement accounts are all subject to rules that can be interpreted to maximize financial advantage. Consider the corporate world. Large companies hire teams of accountants and lawyers whose entire job is to identify tax advantages that are legal but unexpected. Some may involve moving profits across state lines or into specialized entities designed to exploit differences in tax law. Individuals rarely have access to such strategies, yet the principle is the same. Laws written for fairness or efficiency are sometimes so specific that they create opportunities for those who know them. What happens next is rarely discussed. Loopholes often generate public debate only when exposed by investigative journalism or government audits. The average American doesn't realize that even straightforward concepts like income or deductions have hidden layers. Understanding these layers isn't about breaking the law. It's about reading the law closely enough to see where intention and language diverge. These hidden pathways reveal a system designed with precision, but not always with predictability. One of the most astonishing areas where loopholes thrive is in tax law. Federal and state tax codes are notoriously dense, stretching thousands of pages. Within these codes are specific clauses that allow certain deductions, credits, or exemptions. Most people never notice this detail. The IRS provides legal pathways for minimizing tax liability in ways ordinary citizens might not even imagine. Charitable contributions, real estate investments, and even certain retirement accounts are all subject to rules that can be interpreted to maximize financial advantage. Consider the corporate world. Large companies hire teams of accountants and lawyers whose entire job is to identify tax advantages that are legal but unexpected. Some may involve moving profits across state lines or into specialized entities designed to exploit differences in tax law. Individuals rarely have access to such strategies, yet the principle is the same. Laws written for fairness or efficiency are sometimes so specific that they create opportunities for those who know them. What happens next is rarely discussed. Loopholes often generate public debate only when exposed by investigative journalism or government audits. The average American doesn't realize that even straightforward concepts like income or deductions have hidden layers. Understanding these layers isn't about breaking the law. It's about reading the law closely enough to see where intention and language diverge. These hidden pathways reveal a system designed with precision, but not always with predictability. Another striking example exists in property and estate law. Most Americans assume that inheritance taxes or property regulations are absolute. Yet, loopholes quietly shape outcomes in ways few anticipate. For instance, laws that determine how estates are taxed vary by state, and each contains subtle exceptions. A single clause can determine whether a multimillion-dollar estate owes taxes or not. It is the wording of trust formation, property transfers, or gift exclusions that creates these gaps. Most people never notice this detail. The difference of a single phrase in a legal document can determine financial exposure for generations. Additionally, some states allow for strategies that reduce or delay taxation. Family-owned businesses, agricultural property, and even certain life insurance arrangements can exploit these technicalities. What happens next is rarely discussed. Sophisticated planners can structure these transfers in ways that appear routine, yet sidestep major financial burdens. This isn't about evasion, but about understanding the law's internal logic and timing. Americans generally trust that legal systems enforce equality, but these examples show how design can unintentionally favor those with knowledge and resources. The result is a quiet landscape of financial strategy hidden within the framework of law, invisible to those not trained to spot it. This section will explore how legal language, combined with systemic complexity, can fundamentally shape wealth and property outcomes across the United States. Corporate regulation provides another layer where loopholes flourish. Companies are subject to federal and state compliance rules, yet these frameworks are intricate enough to allow unexpected flexibility. Most people never notice this detail. Businesses can operate legally while technically circumventing certain regulatory requirements. Consider environmental regulations, labor laws, or financial reporting rules. A minor technicality in definitions, what constitutes a pollutant, an employee, or a financial instrument, can have major implications. What happens next is rarely discussed. These gaps can allow significant savings, operational freedoms, or avoidance of penalties. Another example is contractual law. Contracts govern almost every aspect of business and personal interactions in the U.S. Yet, loopholes appear when language conflicts with general statutes or when outdated definitions persist in new contexts. Corporations frequently exploit these gaps to negotiate terms that provide maximum advantage. Individuals often unknowingly sign agreements that include exceptions, clauses, or conditions that favor the other party. The system quietly works like this. Laws are applied precisely as written, not as commonly interpreted. Lawyers and regulators may challenge certain interpretations, but until clarified, the law functions exactly according to its literal text. By examining these cases, it becomes clear how legal expertise transforms seemingly rigid rules into navigable pathways, creating outcomes that surprise the untrained eye. The contrast between intention and effect underlines the complexity and adaptability of U.S. law. Federal and state criminal statutes are another area where loopholes appear, though in less sensational ways than media often portrays. Most people never notice this detail. Legal definitions, procedural requirements, and evidentiary standards can create gaps that affect outcomes. For example, how a statute defines a particular offense can determine whether certain behaviors are prosecutable. What happens next is rarely discussed. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, and judges often rely on these nuances to resolve cases without ever challenging the broader system. Technicalities, such as timing, documentation, or statutory language, can dictate whether a case proceeds or is dismissed. Civil litigation also reveals similar gaps. Lawsuits are governed by filing rules, jurisdictional limits, and statute of limitations. Each element introduces potential loopholes that can alter results. Corporations, organizations, and even individuals can leverage these nuances strategically. The system quietly works like this. Knowledge of law provides an advantage that is entirely legal but invisible to outsiders. From property disputes to financial litigation, these subtleties affect outcomes far more than public perception suggests. As we look deeper, it becomes evident that the law is both a shield and a tool. Understanding its hidden intricacies, whether in taxes, contracts, or procedural rules, uncovers a landscape of opportunity shaped by knowledge rather than intention. These insights challenge assumptions about fairness, consistency, and accessibility. In conclusion, U.S. law is not a monolith of rigid enforcement. It is a complex architecture of rules, exceptions, and language where small gaps create real consequences. Loopholes exist not because of malice, but because of the way legislation is drafted, interpreted, and applied. From tax codes to contracts, consumer protections to procedural rules, the system quietly works in ways most Americans never perceive. Understanding these nuances requires patience, expertise, and attention to detail. By exploring these hidden pathways, it becomes clear that legality is not always synonymous with simplicity. Loopholes highlight the tension between intention and execution, revealing a legal ecosystem that is adaptable, precise, and, in some cases, surprisingly permissive. The law's subtleties allow actions that the public assumes impossible, reshaping financial, commercial, and personal outcomes. Knowledge becomes power, not through defiance, but through understanding. In the end, the American legal system is as much about interpretation as enforcement, as much about reading between the lines.